In today's video, I have an adventure on a shrimp boat in a salt marsh in Georgia. I go looking for dolphins in South Carolina. I explore an Air Force museum that echoes the TV series Masters of the Air. I find a pretty great pizza place where I really didn't expect to, and I enjoy a small town Christmas on an island in Florida. It was all part of a 7-day cruise through the Southeast on American Liberty from American Cruise Lines. I'm Jim Zim, and I've already made one video about this cruise, my most recent with American Cruise Lines, but there were so many interesting aspects to this cruise that I simply didn't have enough time to cover them all in that first video I made about it. So this video is a follow-up, giving me an opportunity to share some of the stories I just didn't have time to get to in that previous video. Let's start with that adventure on a shrimp boat in Georgia. This was in the city of Brunswick, Georgia. Our ship had sailed there overnight while I slept, and when I woke up in the morning, the weather was cool and skies were gray, but the weather forecast said it would be warm and sunny before noon. That gentleman there was our guide on the shrimp boat, and there were about a dozen of us from the cruise ship who had signed up for this excursion. The ship's crew had put a net into the water, and the birds got really excited when the crew started to haul that net in. The net was emptied onto this sorting table, and then our guide showed us different things we had caught and even gave us an opportunity to check them out closely. They actually put the net out and retrieved it a couple of different times, giving us a chance to see all sorts of interesting creatures that live here in this salt marsh. This was a particularly interesting crab we caught. And notice as the morning went on, we were starting to see some blue sky and some sunshine. After we were done examining all the little creatures, we made the birds very happy because everything we caught got put right back into the water, and that gave the birds an easy opportunity for a meal. As we were making our way through the salt marsh, I couldn't help but notice the beautiful cable-stayed bridge off in the distance. That afternoon, once the weather had turned fully sunny, I had an opportunity to fly my drone and get a closer look at that bridge. It's the Sidney Lanier Bridge in Brunswick, Georgia, one of 3 beautiful cable-stayed bridges we'd see during our 7-day cruise. While I had the drone in the air, I noticed a very interesting ship at the port of Brunswick. I like all kinds of boats and ships, and this is a particularly interesting type of cargo ship known as a roll-on, roll-off, or ro-ro. See that big ramp coming out the back of the ship? That's for vehicles to be either loaded or unloaded. Unfortunately, I ran out of time and never did get to see what kind of vehicles they were there to load or unload in Brunswick. On these cruises with American Cruise Lines, and this was my 9th, by the way, so that should tell you how much I enjoy these, they do, of course, offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner aboard the ship, but for me, part of the fun of traveling to a place I've never been to before, like Brunswick, Georgia, is doing some food tourism. That's where, instead of enjoying the free lunch aboard the ship, I walk into town and have lunch at a local restaurant. This one pleasantly surprised me. This was a nice pizza place in downtown Brunswick called Fox's Pizza, and I really enjoyed the pepperoni pizza I had for lunch here. American Cruise Lines offers lots of different itineraries throughout the United States on rivers like the Columbia River and the Mississippi River, or along the coast, like this gorgeous cruise in Maine that I did last year. But this week we're cruising through Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, and ACL calls this one the Southeast Sea Islands Itinerary. One of the places the ship visited this week was beautiful Hilton Head, South Carolina. Now, if you're a golfer, you might be familiar with the course at Sea Pines Resort on the island. The PGA Tour visits here. The day our ship visited Hilton Head, I went on a dolphin watching excursion. We saw quite a few dolphins, but most were a little too far away to get pictures of. But here's two that popped up not far from our boat. And then if you look real close, right at the shoreline in this shot, you can barely see one that was hunting for fish right along the beach. I shot a lot of nice aerial video with my drone while we were in Harbor Town on Hilton Head Island, and I very nearly crashed the drone here, too. I saw a sailboat and decided to shoot some video of it with my drone, and when I got close, I realized that it was kids sailing the sailboat, and there was an instructor in a motorboat that was working with them. As I was flying my drone, my focus was on the sailboat, trying to stay with it and keep the shot lined up and looking good, and I wasn't paying as much attention to that motorboat as I should have. And where I really screwed up was in allowing the drone to get a little too low to the water, and I very nearly ran the drone right into the motorboat. Did you see that? It happened really fast. Let me play it again. Watch the lower left corner of the screen. Oh, that was so close. Now let's see it again in slow motion. That motorboat was moving really fast. I'm sure his focus was on the boys on the sailboat. He probably didn't even know I was there. The drone was moving pretty fast too, so if I had flown the drone about a foot lower, the boat and the drone probably would have collided at very high speed. The drone certainly would have been destroyed, and I could very well have injured the guy driving the boat too, so I feel really thankful that it was only a very close call and not an actual collision. Amelia Island, Florida is actually where I boarded the ship at the beginning of the cruise. I flew into Florida a couple of days early so that I would have a chance to explore Amelia Island on my own before the cruise. The cruise was the week before Christmas, December 2024, and my timing was incredibly lucky because on those 2 days before the cruise, Amelia Island was celebrating Christmas in a big way. The first night I was there, they shut down the main street through the downtown area and had a small town Christmas parade. I got a kick out of being there for it. And then the next night, with the main street still closed to vehicles, they threw what was basically a gigantic Christmas party. There was entertainment. Local groups and vendors had booths set up everywhere. There were food trucks with all sorts of good things to eat. And all the local shops and restaurants were open and doing a good business. I was just so glad that I had flown in a couple of days before the cruise started and had the opportunity to be here and celebrate Christmas with everyone on Amelia Island. I'm a train fanatic, so I thought it was cool that they had converted an old train station into a visitor's center. And I also got a kick out of catching a freight train in the background as I was shooting this aerial video of Amelia Island with my drone. One of the things I really love about these cruises with American Cruise Lines is just seeing the scenery in parts of the USA that I've never been to. You can sit out on your private balcony or socialize with the other passengers out on deck as you enjoy the views. On our way to Charleston, South Carolina, the ship traveled through some really interesting territory. I especially appreciated this little canal that had been cut through here to create a shortcut in the intracoastal waterway leading to Charleston. It's known as the Elliott Cut. A little further on our way to Charleston, we had to pass through a special type of bridge, which is called a bascule bridge, sometimes known as a drawbridge. To let ships pass through, the bridge has to be raised open. Now, you'd think that that would require a lot of energy to lift something as heavy as a bridge, but that's the beauty of a bascule bridge. A big counterweight and gravity does most of the work. Another thing I love about these cruises with American Cruise Lines is the design of the cabins. They're roomier than what I'm used to from all the big ocean-going cruise ships I've been on. There was 38 inches between the bed and this chest of drawers in my ACL cabin. On a Carnival ship I was on recently, there was only 18 inches between the bed and this obstruction, and a minuscule 12 inches between the bed and the curtains. The cabins on American Cruise Lines, even the least expensive ones, are sized much more generously than what you get on the other cruise lines. And if by any chance you have mobility issues, that's especially good for you. Also, notice the generous size of the bathroom in my American Cruise Lines cabin compared to the size of this bathroom on the Carnival ship I was on recently. And the shower in that Carnival bathroom had one of those annoying shower curtains that clings to you occasionally. But in my ACL cabin, I had a much better glass door on the shower. And inside the shower, there were 2 shower heads, one up above and one that goes handheld. If you go to ACL's website at www.americancruiselines.com, you can learn about all the different itineraries they offer, and you can even take a virtual tour of some of their ships. But when it comes time to actually booking a cruise with ACL, I bet you're going to have questions. And that's where working with a travel agent can really come in handy. Using a travel agent doesn't cost you anything extra. Their fees are paid for by the cruise lines. But the trick is to find a good travel agent that's specifically knowledgeable about American Cruise Lines, not just about the big lines like Carnival and Princess and the others. So let me recommend a great travel agent to you. Her name is Caitlin Gallagher, and she's the owner of Ambrin Travel. She's the one I book all my cruises with. Get in touch with Caitlin when you're ready to book a cruise with American Cruise Lines. My favorite city on our itinerary was Savannah, Georgia, and in my previous video about this cruise, I didn't have time to tell you about an excursion I took in Savannah to the National Museum of the Mighty 8th Air Force, which tells the compelling story of what in 1942 was the 8th Bomber Command out of Savannah Army Air Base. The museum tells the story of repositioning the group to the United Kingdom, where her bombers could target the forces of Hitler's Germany. The B-17 Flying Fortress was the one they flew in those days. But if you can't make it to Savannah, Georgia to visit the National Museum of the Mighty 8th Air Force, check out the Apple TV miniseries Masters of the Air, which gives you a really good look at what these airmen went through. While our cruise ship American Liberty was docked at a pier in downtown Savannah, just upriver from our location was a pretty amazing place if you're a ship fanatic. I'm talking about the Port of Savannah, which is one of the largest container ship terminals in America. There were a lot of container ships going up and down the Savannah River while we were there, including one in particular that caught my eye. I'm Jim Zim. Thanks for watching this video about my most recent cruise with American Cruise Lines. I'm putting a link up on the screen right now to that previous video I made about it. If you've got 16 minutes to watch another video, click on that link on screen there. I think you'd like it. A lot of great aerial video from this beautiful part of the country.